I know that you're someone who cares, someone who sees the good in others and hopes for a world where kindness prevails. But life isn't always that simple. The unfortunate truth is that not everyone shares that same warmth or compassion. There are people who walk among us, hidden behind friendly smiles or polite words, but beneath the surface lies something far more harmful. You may want to believe in their potential for goodness, and while that hope is beautiful, it can leave you vulnerable if you ignore the warning signs. Sometimes these individuals make themselves known through subtle actions, ones you might overlook until it's too late. A cutting remark disguised as a joke, a sudden withdrawal of support when you need it most, or perhaps an unexplained feeling of unease whenever they're around. It's not always easy to see through their facade, but the sooner you recognize these signs, the better you can protect your peace and well-being. You've likely encountered someone like this before. Someone who derives pleasure from the suffering of others, someone who thrives on control, manipulation, and deceit. Maybe it was a co-worker who reveled in your mistakes, a friend who twisted the truth for their gain, or even a family member who used emotional guilt to control you. These experiences can be painful, but they also hold valuable lessons. The key is recognizing the signs early enough to distance yourself before the damage becomes permanent. One of the clearest signs you're dealing with a harmful individual is their reaction to other people's pain. Empathy is absent, replaced by an unsettling pleasure in seeing others struggle. Imagine someone who smirks when you're having a bad day, or someone who mocks your failures rather than offering comfort. It's not just insensitive, it's revealing. Their enjoyment of others' suffering exposes a lack of compassion and an underlying cruelty that can manifest in more dangerous ways over time. They may even create chaos deliberately, stirring up conflicts, spreading rumors, or pitting people against each other for their own amusement. It's like watching someone set fires just to see how people scramble to put them out. If you've ever noticed someone who seems to be at the center of constant drama or negativity, take a closer look. Chances are they aren't just an innocent bystander, they might be the one lighting the match. Control is another hallmark of a toxic personality. Some people crave control to the point where they manipulate and dominate those around them. It may start subtly, a friend who always decides where you go or what you do, a partner who constantly checks your whereabouts under the guise of concern, or a boss who micromanages every aspect of your work. But over time, this need for control becomes suffocating. They don't just want to influence your life, they want to own it. One woman shared how her controlling partner used small, seemingly harmless requests to establish dominance. First, he insisted on picking her clothes for outings, claiming it was because he had good taste. Then, he started choosing her friends, deciding which ones were good for her. Before she realized it, her entire world was dictated by his preferences. When she tried to push back, he used guilt and emotional manipulation to make her feel like she was the problem. You might feel a strange, inexplicable discomfort when you're around someone like this. Your instincts pick up on their energy before your mind does. Maybe you feel drained after spending time with them, or notice a sense of relief when they leave the room. Pay attention to these feelings. Your body often senses danger long before your conscious mind processes it. Trust those signals. They're your internal alarm system warning you to be cautious. Another red flag is their inability to take responsibility for their actions. When things go wrong, they're quick to shift the blame. They might point fingers at co-workers, friends, or even you. They never acknowledge their own role in the problem, and instead they cast themselves as the victim. This tactic not only deflects accountability, but also manipulates those around them into feeling guilty for things they didn't do. Imagine working on a team project where one member consistently misses deadlines, causing setbacks for everyone. Instead of owning up to their mistakes, They accuse others of poor planning or claim they weren't given enough information. Over time, their refusal to take responsibility creates a toxic environment where trust erodes and resentment builds. Their lies are another tool they use to manipulate and control. Some people lie out of necessity or fear, but harmful individuals lie as a way of life. They lie to gain advantages, to cover up their mistakes, or simply because they enjoy the power that deception gives them. They might lie about small, insignificant things, but over time, these lies add up, chipping away at your ability to trust them. Imagine someone who consistently fabricates stories about their achievements, making themselves seem more successful or important than they really are. Or a partner who lies about their whereabouts, claiming they're working late when they're actually out with someone else. The lies may start small, but they grow like cracks in a foundation, weakening the relationship until it collapses under the weight of deception. Even when confronted, these individuals often show no remorse. They don't apologize, and if they do, it's rarely sincere. Instead, they gaslight you, making you doubt your perception of events. You're overreacting, they'll say, or that's not what happened, you're remembering it wrong. This form of manipulation can be incredibly damaging, as it causes you to question your own reality and instincts. Consider a friend who regularly makes hurtful comments disguised as jokes. When you finally gather the courage to address it, they laugh it off and accuse you of being too sensitive. Over time, you start doubting your feelings, wondering if you're the problem. But you're not. Their lack of remorse and refusal to take accountability is the real issue, and recognizing that can be the first step toward freeing yourself from their influence. Some of these individuals don't hide their cruelty at all. They act openly, delighting in humiliating others or causing pain. You might encounter them in the workplace, where they make snide remarks during meetings or undermine your contributions. Or they could be a so-called friend who mocks your dreams and ambitions, making you feel small for daring to dream big. Their goal isn't to help you grow, it's to keep you beneath them. Family and friends may notice these behaviors before you do. They might warn you about someone's toxic nature, sharing their own experiences or observations. It's easy to dismiss these warnings, especially if you're emotionally invested in the relationship, but ignoring them can lead to greater harm down the line. The people who care about you have nothing to gain by warning you. They're looking out for your well-being. Control is another hallmark of a toxic personality. Some people crave control to the point where they manipulate and dominate. Contempt is perhaps one of the most insidious forms of manipulation. It's not just about criticism, it's about making you feel worthless. They'll criticize your appearance, your choices, your dreams, anything they can use to undermine your confidence. Over time, you might start believing their words, doubting your worth and potential. But you are not the reflection of their contempt. You are valuable, capable, and deserving of respect. Cruelty isn't limited to humans either. People who harm animals often display the same lack of empathy in their relationships with others. Studies have shown a strong link between animal abuse and violent behavior toward people. If someone mistreats animals, it's a clear sign that they lack the compassion and emotional depth necessary for healthy relationships. Recognizing these signs is the first step to protecting yourself. You don't have to confront them head-on or try to change them. Your priority is your well-being. Distance yourself when necessary, set boundaries, and surround yourself with people who uplift and support you. Life is too short to be weighed down by those who thrive on negativity. When dealing with someone harmful, their tactics often work in ways you don't immediately recognize. At first, they might seem friendly, even charming, and it's this charm that makes it difficult to see the manipulation underneath. But as time passes, cracks in their behavior become more visible. Their actions don't align with their words, and you start to notice patterns of manipulation, dishonesty, and control. What makes them dangerous is their ability to disguise their intentions, lulling you into a false sense of security before revealing their true nature. One common manipulation tactic is guilt. They use guilt like a weapon, skillfully aiming it at your most vulnerable spots. They make you feel responsible for their feelings, their failures, and their problems. If you try to set boundaries, they twist the situation to make it seem like you're being unreasonable. Suddenly, you're the one apologizing, even when you've done nothing wrong. This cycle of guilt can be exhausting, chipping away at your self-esteem and making you doubt your own judgment. Take, for example, a friend who constantly relies on you for emotional support, but never reciprocates. When you finally try to take a step back to protect your mental health, they accuse you of being selfish or abandoning them in their time of need. You feel torn, guilty for prioritizing yourself, even though you know deep down that you deserve the same support you give to others. It's a clever trap, and the only way to escape it is by recognizing that their guilt-tripping is a form of manipulation. These individuals also thrive on triangulation, a tactic where they involve a third party to manipulate and control you. They may pit you against someone else, creating a rivalry where there shouldn't be one, or they may confide in others to gain sympathy while painting you as the villain. For instance, they might tell mutual friends about an argument you had, twisting the story to make you seem like the aggressor. By the time you realize what's happening, they've already positioned themselves as the victim in everyone else's eyes. Triangulation is particularly damaging in romantic relationships, where a partner might compare you to an ex or bring a third party into your conflicts. They do this to make you feel insecure, to make you compete for their approval, and ultimately, to keep you under their control. If you've ever felt like you're fighting an invisible battle with someone you don't even know, you've likely been a victim of triangulation. Another sign to watch for is how they handle conflict. Healthy individuals approach disagreements with the intent to resolve them, but harmful people use conflict as a tool to dominate and belittle. They don't argue to find solutions, they argue to win. They'll bring up past mistakes, twist your words, and escalate situations until you feel cornered. When you try to defend yourself, they accuse you of being too sensitive or overreacting. Imagine being in a relationship where every disagreement turns into a battle. You start off discussing something minor, but before you know it, you're being blamed for things that happened months or even years ago. They drag up old arguments to weaken your position, making you feel like you're constantly on trial. Over time, you might find yourself avoiding conflict altogether, walking on eggshells to keep the peace. But peace under their terms isn't peace, it's submission. Then there's their ability to play the victim, a tactic that's both manipulative and deceptive. When they make a mistake, they rarely admit it. Instead, they shift the narrative to make themselves look like the one who's been wronged. They cry, plead, and make you feel like they're the ones in pain, even if they're the cause of the problem. It's a tactic designed to elicit sympathy and deflect blame. A woman once shared her experience with a partner who frequently played the victim. Whenever he was caught in a lie or did something hurtful, he would break down in tears, claiming he felt misunderstood or unloved. She would comfort him, forgetting that she was the one who had been hurt. By the time the argument ended, she was the one apologizing. It wasn't until she stepped back and saw the pattern that she realized he had been using her empathy against her all along. These individuals are also skilled at creating an illusion of closeness. They might shower you with attention, gifts, or compliments at the beginning of your relationship, making you feel special and valued. This phase, often referred to as love bombing, is a tactic to gain your trust and emotional investment quickly. But once they have you hooked, the dynamic shifts, the attention fades, and you're left wondering what you did wrong. They create a push and pull effect, where you're constantly trying to win back their affection. A man once described how his relationship started with grand gestures and daily affirmations. His partner made him feel like he was the center of their world. But slowly, the gestures became less frequent, and the affirmations were replaced with criticism. He found himself chasing the high of those initial moments, doing whatever he could to get back to the version of his partner who had once been so attentive. But that version was a facade, a carefully constructed illusion designed to reel him in. Harmful individuals often isolate you from your support system, cutting off your access to friends and family. They do this subtly at first, planting seeds of doubt about the people closest to you. "I don't think your friend really has your best interests at heart," they might say, or "your family doesn't understand you the way I do." Over time, you may start to believe them, distancing yourself from those who could help you see the situation for what it is. Isolation is a powerful weapon because it leaves you dependent on the very person who's causing the harm. Without the outside perspective of friends and family, you're more likely to internalize their manipulation and believe that you're the problem. But the moment you reconnect with those who genuinely care about you, the fog starts to lift. They remind you of who you are, what you deserve, and that you're not alone. Perhaps one of the most painful tactics they use is exploiting your insecurities. They identify your vulnerabilities and use them against you, not overtly, but in subtle, cutting ways. They might make backhanded compliments, saying things like, "You're doing well for someone with your background," or "You look great today, much better than usual." These comments are designed to keep you off balance, to make you second-guess yourself and seek their validation. A woman shared how her partner constantly made comments about her weight, even when she was at her healthiest. He would say things like, "You'd be perfect if you just lost a few pounds," or "Imagine how amazing you'd look if you worked out more." Over time, she began to see herself through his critical lens, believing that she wasn't enough. It wasn't until she left the relationship and surrounded herself with supportive people that she realized how damaging his words had been. Recognizing these signs isn't easy, especially when you're emotionally involved, but awareness is the first step to breaking free. The moment you start noticing patterns of manipulation, deceit, and control, trust your instincts. Set boundaries, seek support, and remember that you have the power to protect your peace. Breaking free from the grasp of a toxic individual is never easy. Their tactics are designed to entangle you, making you question your worth, your instincts, and even your reality. But the moment you begin to recognize the signs and understand how they operate, you're already taking back your power. And that power begins with setting boundaries and protecting your peace. One of the most important things to remember is that you're not obligated to stay in anyone's life if they consistently harm you. Sometimes we hold on to toxic relationships because we believe we can fix the person, or because we're afraid of the consequences of leaving. But here's the truth. Your well-being should never be sacrificed for the sake of maintaining a relationship, no matter how long it's been or how deeply rooted the connection feels. Think of the friend who always belittles your dreams, the partner who controls your every move, or the co-worker who sabotages your efforts while pretending to be supportive. They don't deserve a place in your life if their presence consistently brings you pain. You have the right to walk away, and you don't need anyone's permission to do so. However, walking away doesn't always happen overnight. Some ties are harder to sever, especially when they involve family, long-term friendships, or romantic relationships. But even if you can't fully cut ties right away, you can start by setting boundaries. Boundaries are your shield, protecting your mental and emotional space. They communicate what you will and won't tolerate, and they remind you that you're in control of your life. Setting boundaries with a toxic person isn't about getting them to change, it's about changing how you interact with them. For example, if a friend constantly brings up your insecurities, you can let them know that you won't engage in conversations that make you feel uncomfortable. If they continue, you have every right to limit or end your interactions with them. You're not being harsh or unkind, you're taking care of yourself. One woman shared how she learned to set boundaries with her sister, who had a habit of making critical remarks about her appearance. For years, she endured the comments, brushing them off as just her sister's way of joking. But eventually, the remarks started to affect her self-esteem. She realized that by staying silent, she was giving her sister permission to continue. So, she set a boundary. Anytime her sister made a comment about her appearance, she would end the conversation or leave the room. At first, her sister resisted, accusing her of being overly sensitive. But as time passed, she respected the boundary, and the comments stopped. Boundaries work because they shift the power dynamic. Toxic individuals thrive on controlling others, but when you set boundaries, you take that control away. You're no longer playing by their rules, you're creating your own. And while they may push back at first, the more consistent you are, the more they'll realize that they can't manipulate you like they used to. In some cases, you might need to go beyond setting boundaries and completely distance yourself from the person. This can be difficult, especially if you've invested time, love, and energy into the relationship. But holding on to someone who constantly hurts you is like holding onto a thorny branch. It only causes more pain the longer you grip it. Letting go may be painful at first, but it's the kind of pain that leads to healing. Consider the story of a man who ended a long-term friendship after realizing how toxic it had become. His friend had a habit of making him feel small, often mocking his career choices and dismissing his achievements. For years, he put up with it because they had grown up together, and he didn't want to lose that history. But eventually he realized that history wasn't enough to justify the emotional damage he was enduring. He made the difficult decision to cut ties, and though it hurt at first, he later described it as one of the most freeing experiences of his life. Without the constant negativity, he was able to pursue his goals with confidence and surround himself with people who genuinely supported him. Another crucial step in protecting yourself is recognizing when someone is trying to pull you back into their web. Toxic individuals rarely let go easily. They may try to reel you back in with apologies, promises to change, or emotional outbursts. They'll remind you of the good times, the memories you shared, and the love you once had. And while their words may tug at your heart, remember that actions speak louder. If they've hurt you repeatedly, ask yourself, what has changed? Are they showing consistent signs of improvement, or are they simply using words to pull you back into the same cycle? Apologies without action are empty, and you deserve more than empty promises. One of the hardest things to do is resist the urge to give someone another chance, especially when they're saying all the right things. But true change takes time and effort, and it's not your responsibility to wait around for someone to become the person you hoped they would be. A woman once shared how her ex-partner tried to win her back after years of emotional abuse. He wrote her letters, sent flowers, and promised that things would be different this time. For a moment, she considered giving him another chance, but then she remembered the countless times he had made similar promises in the past. Each time she had believed him, only to end up hurt again. This time, she chose herself. She blocked his number, deleted his messages, and focused on her healing. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary. Healing from a toxic relationship takes time, and it's important to be patient with yourself. There will be moments when you miss the person, when you wonder if you made the right decision, or when you feel the urge to reach out to them. These feelings are normal, but they don't mean you should go back. Healing isn't about forgetting the pain. It's about learning from it and growing stronger because of it. One of the most powerful tools for healing is self-reflection. Take time to understand why you stayed in the relationship for as long as you did, what patterns you noticed, and what lessons you can carry forward. This isn't about blaming yourself. It's about empowering yourself with knowledge so you can recognize and avoid similar situations in the future. Surround yourself with people who uplift you. Reconnect with friends and family who bring positivity into your life. Seek support from those who understand what you've been through, whether it's a trusted friend, a therapist, or a support group. You don't have to go through this journey alone. Most importantly, forgive yourself. Forgive yourself for not seeing the signs sooner, for staying longer than you should have, or for believing in someone who let you down. Self-forgiveness is the key to moving forward. It allows you to release the guilt and shame that toxic individuals often leave behind and embrace the possibility of a brighter future. As you heal, you'll start to rediscover parts of yourself that may have been buried under the weight of the toxic relationship. You'll remember what it feels like to be confident, joyful, and free. And when you do, you'll realize that letting go wasn't just about escaping the pain. It was about making space for something better. Letting go of a toxic relationship doesn't just free you from the person. It frees you from the beliefs and doubts they instilled in you. It's not uncommon to carry the scars of manipulation long after the relationship has ended. You might hear their voice in your head, doubting your decisions, questioning your worth, or replaying painful memories. But healing is about silencing that voice and reclaiming your narrative. One of the most effective ways to heal is by rewriting the story you tell yourself. Toxic individuals often make you feel like you're the problem, like you're too difficult, too emotional, or too sensitive. But none of that is true. You are not defined by their words or the pain they caused. You are defined by how you rise from it, by the strength you show in rebuilding your life. Take time to reflect on the things you've been told and how they've impacted your self-image. Were you made to feel like you weren't enough? Were your dreams belittled or your emotions dismissed? Write these things down and then challenge them. Ask yourself if these beliefs are truly yours or if they were planted by someone else. As you do this, you'll begin to separate their voice from your own, creating space for self-compassion and acceptance. A man once shared how his partner's constant criticism affected his confidence. She would tell him he wasn't ambitious enough, that his goals were too small, and that he'd never achieve anything worthwhile. Over time, he started believing her, and his motivation dwindled. But after their breakup, he began journaling about his dreams and rediscovering his passions. He realized that her criticism wasn't a reflection of his potential, it was a reflection of her insecurities. With that understanding, he was able to rebuild his confidence and pursue his goals without the weight of her negativity holding him back. Another important aspect of healing is rediscovering joy. Toxic relationships often drain you of energy and joy, leaving you feeling empty and disconnected. But joy isn't lost forever. It's waiting for you to find it again. Start by reconnecting with the activities and people that make you happy. What did you love to do before this relationship consumed you? Was it painting, hiking, dancing, or spending time with friends? Whatever it is, give yourself permission to indulge in it again. One woman shared how she rediscovered her love for gardening after leaving a toxic marriage. Her ex-husband had always dismissed it as a waste of time, but for her, it was a source of peace and creativity. After the divorce, she transformed her backyard into a vibrant garden, finding healing in the soil, the blooms, and the act of nurturing life. Every time she planted a new seed, she saw it as a metaphor for her own growth, a reminder that healing, like gardening, takes time, but is always worth the effort. Forgiving the person who hurt you is another step on the path to healing, but it's often the most difficult. Forgiveness doesn't mean condoning their behavior or inviting them back into your life. It means releasing the hold they have over you. Holding on to anger and resentment only prolongs the pain, while forgiveness allows you to let go and move forward. Think of forgiveness as setting down a heavy backpack you've been carrying for too long. The weight of it has slowed you down, made you tired, and caused unnecessary pain. But when you set it down, you feel lighter, freer, and ready to take the next step. Forgiving doesn't erase what happened, but it prevents the past from controlling your future. A woman who had been betrayed by a close friend shared how forgiveness changed her life. At first, she was consumed by anger, replaying the betrayal in her mind and wondering how someone she trusted could hurt her so deeply. But as time passed, she realized that holding on to the anger was only hurting her, not the person who betrayed her. So, she made the conscious decision to forgive, not for their sake, but for her own. In doing so, she freed herself from the emotional burden and was able to move on without the weight of resentment holding her back. As you heal, it's essential to redefine what healthy relationships look like to you. Toxic relationships often skew your perception of what's normal, making it difficult to recognize red flags in the future. Take time to reflect on what you want in a relationship, whether it's a friendship, romantic partnership, or family connection. What qualities are non-negotiable for you? What boundaries do you need to set to protect your well-being? A man who had been in a controlling relationship shared how he created a list of qualities he wanted in a future partner. At the top of the list were respect, empathy, and honesty. This list became his guide, helping him navigate new relationships with clarity and confidence. Whenever he noticed behavior that didn't align with his values, he knew it was a sign to reevaluate the relationship before it could turn toxic. Remember, healing is not linear. There will be days when you feel strong and empowered, and there will be days when the pain resurfaces. Both are part of the process, and neither defines your progress. On the difficult days, remind yourself of how far you've come and the strength it took to leave the toxic relationship. Celebrate the small victories, like setting a boundary or reconnecting with a friend. Each step, no matter how small, brings you closer to the life you deserve. It's also important to be kind to yourself during this journey. Toxic individuals often leave behind a trail of self-doubt, making it easy to blame yourself for the relationship's failures. But healing requires self-compassion. Talk to yourself as you would a close friend, someone you care about deeply and want to see thrive. Remind yourself that you're human and that making mistakes or staying in a relationship longer than you should have doesn't make you weak. It makes you someone who's learning and growing. One woman described how self-compassion helped her overcome the guilt she felt after ending a long-term relationship. She had stayed with her partner for years, hoping he would change, and when he didn't, she blamed herself for not leaving sooner. But through therapy and self-reflection, she realized that her decision to stay was rooted in hope, not weakness. She began practicing self-compassion by writing letters to herself, acknowledging her feelings and reminding herself of her worth. These letters became a source of comfort, helping her heal and let go of the guilt. As you rebuild your life, focus on creating a future that aligns with your values and desires. Set goals, both big and small, and celebrate your progress along the way. Surround yourself with people who uplift you and support your growth. And most importantly, trust that you are capable of creating a life filled with joy, love, and peace. You've already taken the first step by recognizing the signs and making the decision to prioritize your well-being. The road ahead may be challenging, but it's also filled with opportunities for growth, healing, and rediscovery. As you move forward, let your past be a lesson, not a limitation. You have the strength to overcome this, and on the other side of healing, you'll find a version of yourself that is stronger, wiser, and more resilient than ever before. As you move forward on this path of healing, you'll start to notice something remarkable: the freedom that comes with choosing yourself. When you've spent so much time catering to someone else's needs, it can feel strange to focus on your own. But this isn't selfish, it's essential. Choosing yourself means giving yourself permission to grow, to heal, and to pursue the life that fulfills you without the weight of someone else's negativity holding you back. One of the most powerful realizations you'll have is that you don't need anyone's approval to be happy. Toxic people often condition you to seek validation from them, creating a dependency where you feel like your worth is tied to their opinions. But true validation comes from within. As you reclaim your independence, you'll learn to trust yourself again. You'll see that your value isn't determined by how others treat you, but by how you treat yourself. A man who had been in a manipulative relationship shared how this realization changed his life. His partner had constantly criticized him, making him feel like nothing he did was ever good enough. After the relationship ended, he spent months doubting himself, questioning every decision he made. But one day, he realized that he had been giving too much power to someone who didn't deserve it. From that moment on, he made a commitment to himself. He would no longer let other people define his worth. He started journaling daily, writing down affirmations and accomplishments, no matter how small. Over time, those affirmations became his internal voice, replacing the negativity with self-assurance. Another key step in reclaiming your life is setting new, healthier boundaries, not just with others, but with yourself. Toxic relationships can blur the lines of what's acceptable, leaving you unsure of where to draw the line in future interactions. But boundaries are a form of self-respect. They're a way of saying, I value myself enough to protect my peace. As you practice setting boundaries, you'll notice a shift in how people respond to you. Those who respect you will honor your boundaries, while those who don't will reveal their true intentions. A woman who had been through years of emotional abuse shared how setting boundaries transformed her life. At first, she struggled with guilt, fearing that saying no would make her seem cold or uncaring. But she quickly realized that boundaries weren't about shutting people out. They were about creating space for her own well-being. She started small, declining invitations that didn't bring her joy and limiting conversations with people who drained her energy. With each boundary she set, her confidence grew, and she found herself surrounded by people who respected her limits instead of pushing them. Part of creating a new chapter in your life is rediscovering who you are outside of the toxic relationship. When someone tries to control you, they often suppress parts of your identity to fit their narrative. But now, you have the chance to reclaim those parts and explore new aspects of yourself that were once hidden. Think back to the things you loved before the relationship, hobbies, passions, or dreams that you may have put on hold. Reconnect with them and allow yourself to be curious about new possibilities. One man shared how he rediscovered his love for photography after ending a controlling relationship. His partner had always dismissed his passion, calling it a waste of time and encouraging him to focus on more practical pursuits. But once he was free from her influence, he picked up his camera again. What started as a hobby quickly turned into a source of joy and eventually a career. He realized that by following his passion, he wasn't just proving her wrong, he was proving to himself that he had the power to create a life on his terms. Healing also involves learning to trust others again. Toxic relationships can leave you guarded, afraid to let people in for fear of being hurt again. But not everyone will treat you the way that person did. There are people in the world who will uplift you, support you, and cherish you for who you are. Learning to trust again doesn't mean ignoring the lessons you've learned. It means applying those lessons to build healthier connections. Start by surrounding yourself with people who make you feel safe and valued. Pay attention to how they respond to your boundaries and how they show up for you when you need them. Trust isn't built overnight, but it grows through consistent actions. Give yourself time to heal and don't rush into new relationships until you feel ready. When you do, trust your instincts. The lessons you've learned will guide you, helping you distinguish between those who have good intentions and those who don't. A woman who had been betrayed by a close friend shared how she slowly rebuilt her trust in others. At first, she was hesitant to open up, keeping her thoughts and feelings guarded. But she realized that isolating herself wasn't the solution. It was only prolonging her pain. So she started with small acts of trust, like sharing a personal story with a friend or accepting help when it was offered. With each positive experience, her walls began to come down, and she was able to form meaningful connections without the fear of betrayal. As you rebuild trust in others, don't forget to rebuild trust in yourself. Toxic individuals often make you doubt your own judgment, but you have the ability to make wise decisions. Reflect on the choices you've made and the lessons you've learned. Each experience, whether positive or negative, has contributed to your growth. Trusting yourself doesn't mean you won't make mistakes. It means you have the confidence to learn from them and keep moving forward. Forgive yourself for the times you ignored red flags or stayed longer than you should have. Remember that your past doesn't define your future. What matters is the strength you've shown in choosing to heal and the courage it takes to rebuild your life. You've survived the storm, and now you have the chance to create a life filled with light and purpose. As you continue to heal, you'll notice that your perspective on life begins to shift. The things that once seemed overwhelming will feel more manageable. The doubts that clouded your mind will give way to clarity, and the person you see in the mirror will no longer be defined by the pain they endured, but by the resilience they've built. Embrace this transformation. Allow yourself to celebrate your progress, no matter how small. Healing isn't about reaching a final destination. It's about appreciating the journey and the growth that comes with it. You've come a long way, and the best part is, you're just getting started. As you stand on the threshold of your new life, there's one final truth to embrace. Healing isn't about returning to who you once were. It's about evolving into someone even stronger, someone who has taken their pain and transformed it into wisdom. The version of you that emerges from this journey is someone who knows their worth, who doesn't settle for less, and who recognizes that life's challenges are not obstacles, but opportunities for growth. You'll start to see that the power once held over you has dissolved. The person who once controlled your thoughts and emotions no longer defines your days. Their influence fades, replaced by a sense of freedom you may not have felt in years. This is your rebirth, an awakening to the life you've always deserved, free from manipulation and filled with the possibility of joy. One of the most beautiful aspects of this transformation is the rediscovery of your inner peace. Toxic relationships often create a sense of chaos, with your emotions constantly being pulled in different directions. But as you let go, the storm begins to calm. You'll wake up in the morning with a sense of calm, knowing that the only person you need to answer to is yourself. Your choices are yours to make, and your life is yours to live. A man who had spent years in a toxic work environment described the overwhelming relief he felt after finally leaving. At first, he feared what life would be like without the job that had consumed so much of his time and energy. But once he stepped away, he realized how much mental space had been freed up. He could think clearly, sleep better, and pursue new opportunities without the constant weight of stress. His departure wasn't just about leaving a job, it was about reclaiming his peace of mind. As you create this new chapter, you'll also notice how your relationships with others evolve. You'll begin to attract people who align with your values, who uplift you instead of tearing you down. The friends who stick around are the ones who genuinely care for you, and you'll form new connections with those who appreciate the authentic version of you. Toxic relationships teach us what we don't want, but they also help us recognize and cherish what we do want: respect, empathy, and love. A woman shared how, after ending a toxic relationship, she met someone who showed her what true partnership looked like. At first, she was hesitant, afraid that history would repeat itself. But as time passed, she saw that this new person respected her boundaries, valued her opinions, and celebrated her achievements without jealousy or resentment. It was a relationship built on mutual trust and support, a stark contrast to what she had experienced before. She realized that by walking away from what wasn't right for her, she had made space for what was. Healing is also about giving yourself permission to experience joy again. Toxic relationships can dim your light, making you forget how to laugh, how to play, and how to savor life's simple pleasures. But joy is your birthright, and it's waiting for you to reclaim it. Take time to do the things that make you happy, whether it's dancing in your living room, exploring nature, or spending time with loved ones. Let yourself be fully present in these moments, without guilt or hesitation. A man who had been emotionally drained by a toxic relationship described how he reconnected with joy through travel. After years of being told that his desire to explore the world was impractical, he booked a solo trip to a place he'd always dreamed of visiting. The experience was transformative. Each step he took on unfamiliar soil was a reminder that he had the courage to pursue his dreams, and each new sight was a celebration of the freedom he had gained. By the time he returned, he wasn't just refreshed, he was reborn. As you continue to heal, you'll develop a new relationship with yourself, one built on trust, compassion, and self-love. Toxic relationships often leave behind self-doubt, but the more you nurture yourself, the more that doubt will fade. Treat yourself with the kindness you would offer a dear friend. Acknowledge your achievements, forgive your mistakes, and celebrate your progress. You are your own greatest ally, and the love you give yourself sets the foundation for the love you receive from others. One woman shared how practicing self-love helped her heal after years of being emotionally manipulated. She created daily rituals that reminded her of her worth. Morning affirmations, evening gratitude lists, and moments of reflection throughout the day. At first, the affirmations felt forced, as if she didn't truly believe them, but with time, they became her truth. "I am enough," she would tell herself. And eventually, she didn't just say it, she felt it. The final step in your healing journey is embracing forgiveness, not just for the person who hurt you, but for yourself. Forgiveness isn't about forgetting what happened or letting the person off the hook. It's about freeing yourself from the emotional chains that bind you to the past. When you forgive, you take back your power. You're no longer held captive by anger or resentment, and you open the door to a future filled with possibility. A man who had been betrayed by a close friend shared how forgiveness allowed him to heal. At first, he resisted, believing that forgiveness would minimize the betrayal. But over time, he realized that holding on to anger was only hurting him. He didn't need an apology or reconciliation to forgive. He just needed to let go. And when he did, he felt a weight lift from his shoulders, as if he had been carrying a burden he didn't know he could set down. Now, as you stand here, remember that you've made it through the storm. The pain, the confusion, the self-doubt, it's all part of your story, but it's not the end of it. The person you've become through this journey is someone who knows their worth, who has set boundaries, and who no longer tolerates anything less than respect and kindness. Embrace this new beginning with open arms. You've earned it. The life you're stepping into is one filled with potential, and you have the strength, wisdom, and courage to create it on your terms. Let go of the past, trust in your future, and most importantly, trust in yourself. You are resilient, you are worthy, and you are free.